Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, Matt.
Hey Joyce, how's it going?
Not bad. Let's just introduce ourselves first before we dive right in. My name is Joyce. I'm a developer advocate working at Postman, and I'm working out of San Francisco. Matt?
Hi there, I'm Matt, and I'm a solutions engineer here at Postman, and I'm currently working out of the UK.
Yeah, so you used to work in our SF office with me and just recently migrated over back
That's
over to UK.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So a bit of moving across the pond for me, but still with Postman, so it's all good.
Yeah. So I was looking for a guest to have, and when you were in the SF office, Matt, I would, brainstorm with you. We'd debug together. And then I was thinking, oh man, Arlemi's not going to be here today. The last time Arlemy wasn't with me, I was like, who do I know that's French? And I asked Nicolas Grenier to come on to be a guest. And this time I'm like, who do I know that's in London? And now you're our guest. So thank you very much for being our guest. Solutions Engineering, pretty rad group here in Postman. So you had a side project. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came up with this and then what we'll be doing today before we dive into In Case You Missed It?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, I've been working on a project called Postman CLI, and really this came about because as a factor of talking with Postman customers day in, day out, and seeing how people use the product. I found that there were some people who were making a lot of use of Postman, but also they were really trying to couple Postman quite closely with both their own IDE as well as an outside version control system like GitHub. And people were finding that a little bit challenging with some of the tools that Postman just has as an application on your machine. And knowing some of the capabilities of Postman's own API, I thought it would be possible to create a solution which might bridge the gap between these worlds a little bit. And so that's how the CLI came about.
Super cool. And we have some regulars, it looks like. Hi, Russell W. Carey. Hi. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully, we have some CLI experts and some IDE experts because normally we spend a lot of time in Postman, but it sounds like we're going to be spending a lot of time in our IDE and maybe from command line. And that trips me up sometimes. So I'm going to be guinea pig for your CLI and we'll see what that gets us. But first, let's start off with In Case You Missed It. Dun, 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 in case you missed it. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you see my screen. I am back in our friendly community discourse forum. And once again, Arlemy is not with us physically here, but he's once again behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Arlemy. You'll see Arlemy here in the chat, and he's in our ears as well. So Arlemy has written up release notes, user-friendly release notes for Postman version 7.27. So once again, we're just going to take a look at what's new. He's bulleted it for us. And probably the biggest one, I'm just scanning these. New API overview tab, auth improvements, network information, probably more information about the network stuff that's going out the raw view. So this update collections generated from the API builder is, if it is what I think it is, it's huge. So
Yes.
Matt, you talk with customers all the time that are using API specifications. And
Mhm.
if you have, let's look at this. Oh, I love these gifts. Thank you, Arlemy. Yeah, so what's going on here? If you have an API specification, you're under the APIs tab up here, and you have the schema validation issues are found. You're going to go see
Mhm.
what those issues are. Oh, here's an itemized list. Here's a diff. Okay, so if you generate a collection from your API spec, like say you have documentation or you have tests, and there's a
Mhm.
discrepancy between those two files or those two sources of truth, then this is going
Yeah.
to call out those differences, and it's kind of like a conflict,
Right.
itemized conflict, and you can choose to accept and merge them back. So having it used to be like a one-way push to
Mhm.
create a collection, and
Yeah.
now you have that two-way sync.
Exactly. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
know like a lot of customers have that scenario, right? That's been one of the biggest asks for the specification.
Yeah, so this bridges a pretty big gap. So a few months ago, we introduced validations, which allowed you to see whether the resources that you have built out in Postman, your collections, documentation, mock service, things like that, are actually set up in a way that that your schema agrees with, and so that would highlight a potential difference to you. But then it would be on you to kind of go in there and manually update a collection in line with changes that have happened to your schema. Now, as well as telling you about those differences, as you saw, you can just check those boxes, and you can have your documentation or your mock server update automatically based on a change that's happened to the schema.
Yeah, that makes it a lot more usable.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just dropped a link to this summary that Arlemy posted on our community forum. Take a look at that if you're interested in any of those specific updates. And as always, join our community forum so you can see the latest summaries from Arlemy. And that's in case you missed it. Dun, 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 dun. Do we have an outro slide, Arlemy, or is that it? Okay, totally cool. Totally cool. Okay, so back to our project for the day. Let me just go ahead and pull this up. And in fact, I'll drop a link here as well. So this is Matt's CLI project. Oops, Matt's CLI, let's just call it. Take a look at it. This is the GitHub repo. And you said that there's a lot of different reasons, like in your discussions with customers, why this has come up. And I know when we write tests in Postman, here, I have Postman open here. This is like my if we write tests in Postman, let me find Postman Echo. Let's load up one of the requests. If we're writing tests, Postman has like the snippets. We've used this before. Actually, I think we've done a few things here, but we haven't focused on tests before in this live stream. But people know Postman for testing, and you're here in the graphical user interface and you're like tapping out some tests. That's great. But a lot of people have more complicated logic, or they just, there's been a lot of enhancements. We have this nice like functionality coming in, but it's still not quite to the point of your home IDE.
Yeah. So there's definitely, as of very recent, especially been some big improvements to this editor in Postman. But typically you'll find that people kind of have a comfort zone of where they like to write code and how they like to do it. And so being in an external tool to that can sometimes be jarring for people. Some people like having everything in one place. So really this is about providing options.
Yeah, and just to be clear for everyone, this is not an official Postman. Matt's CLI is not an official Postman thing. It's just something that you built because you saw a need, and it's part of your job description, but it was just, you didn't have to build this. You use the Postman API, I'm guessing, behind the hood.
Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing about the CLI that I've put together that wasn't possible beforehand. Someone could have written this same CLI long before I did it, because the Postman API basically allows you to do everything. So really, it's just a case of some surrounding code to wrap up our API and turn it into that CLI experience.
Okay, so what I'd like to do today is just kind of use your CLI. I'll tell you any pain points if I see any. And people at home, if you want to follow along, you should be able to do that as well. So what I have up on the screen is the Postman API. I love how, I don't know if you saw me do this, but we're not first. We're not listed first.
Yeah. Well, that might be a bit biased,
Yeah. So the Postman API, if you're not familiar with it, is just a way to control all of your Postman data. And that, Matt, is what your tool is using to do this behind the scenes. Okay, so
exactly, yeah.
Where should I start?
So the first thing that we're going to need to do is actually get a hold of the CLI. And so it's over at GitHub, as you've already opened up. And so there's a README here, and there's some installation instructions. And this particular CLI is powered through Node. So it's a Node package that you need to install. And because it's something that you might run or are most likely to run across multiple repos, multiple projects, I'm suggesting that you would
So that's why
install
you
it
have
globally for use
the
across
-G.
the system. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's going to be a Node kind of day. Any Node experts in the chat, please? Actually, Matt, you should be able to help me out. But just in case we get stuck, please help us out for Node-y stuff. Okay, so just go ahead and start with the installation.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, it's going to be a copy and paste kind of day, hopefully. Okay, so should I just install it globally, you said, before I create a project repo?
Yeah, just go ahead and install it globally, and then we can use it anywhere regardless of what repo we use.
Okay. Uh-oh. What happened? Write access. Do I need a sudo ahead of that?
Yeah, so I think this is to do with where your particular version of Node is installed. So that would probably be something to resolve at some point, but just for digging into this for now, you're good.
Okay, so all I did was enable permissions to the root access because it's -G. We're installing this CLI globally, and it looks like it did it successfully this time. Okay, now what?
Cool. So the first thing that we need to do is configure the CLI.
Okay.
So the next stage under installation there in the README is configuration.
Mm-hmm.
And basically after that, after running that installation of the Node package, you then have a command called Postman that you can use at your command line. And in order to configure the CLI for a specific project or repo, we have to run a Postman setup command, but we want to do that in the root of like a directory or a project that we're going to be working in.
Whoops, where did my window go? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do, what's this going to be called? Like script IDE fun.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, I'm going to change into IDE fun. So now I'm in the root of this project called IDE fun, and I'm going to run Postman setup.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, do I need a Git repository setup? Oops.
So I mean, there's a good chance that you might already have a project set up and it is a Git repository, right? Otherwise, if you're starting a new project, there's probably also a chance that this is going to be a Git repository. Part of the goal of using this CLI is to be able to put your Postman scripts alongside all the other code that you're writing for your API, for example. So you're probably version controlling that, or 99.9% chance you are. So it's probably a Git repo, but to just try it out today, it's not a requirement in order to
not a requirement, but we'll probably have to add it later.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, hi Frapper. Thank you for helping me in the future as we'll need it, I'm sure. Hi, hello. Okay, so I'm just gonna run. I copied this from the README under the configuration. I'm just gonna go ahead and run this and make it front and center so you can see it. My Postman API key. Okay, so I have a Postman API key saved to my environment variables. Do you happen to know if that'll work? Will I be able to like just say Postman API key?
So I'm not 100% sure because I haven't tried this out. My suspicion is that probably won't work because I think this input is basically just going to take the raw string that you enter rather than resolve anything for you. So there would probably be some magic required for this to work.
So if I enter in my actual key here, will people see it or is it masked?
People will see that.
It.
So we would want a secret screen for that. And then once you've entered it, you can scroll.
So I actually have an API key. I have my config file next to me on a separate screen. So I'm not going to go through the user. It's pretty easy to get your API key, your Postman API key. So Arlemy, could you please invoke the secret shield, please? Wait, won't they see it on this? Okay, here. So theoretically it's up. By the way, your secret shield is not very, like, Yeah, it's not very secret. Okay, so maybe I'll change my screen and then not scroll up, or how do I hide this?
I think you're good for now. So if you hit enter and then let's see if you can
Okay,
now
let's
scroll to a point that it's hidden.
hold on. Like this.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, wait. Undo secret shield, please. Okay, so this is like now we're in a tiny, tiny screen. Okay, so all I did was paste in my Postman API key and then hit enter. And now this is the next CLI prompt. Select the workspace that your collection resides within. So I have an example collection called Echo, and I think it's in our Twitch. Can I just start typing, or do I scroll down?
Yeah, you can. It should filter the list out as you type, and then you can select the one that you want to use.
Okay, so the one that we use all the time in the live stream is the Twitch workspace, team workspace. And Matt, you're in that team workspace. Arlemi's there. So this is where we collaborate on our stuff. I'll just go ahead and hit enter. What was that? Was that a secret? It's all right.
No, that was just the unique ID for the workspace.
Okay. So select the collection you wish to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and find Postman Echo. So hit enter. Enter the directory for Postman files. What's that?
Yeah, so the purpose for the CLI is really to act as a bit of a middleman. So it's going to take the scripts that we have in Postman that traditionally we can only edit in Postman, and it's going to create a folder and file structure containing those same scripts, but broken down by request, and it will give us actual JavaScript files, so .js files, where those scripts are now contained so that we can edit them locally rather than do them in Postman. And so what this is asking for is just a directory name that you want to collect all of those files within. So the default it's suggesting is Postman, but you can set it to whatever you'd like.
Okay, so this is the directory name for where this new tool will create this scaffolding that we do our work. And we do have a question in the chat. Hoshman Lull says, can you explain what a Postman API key is? Matt, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, so when you're using Postman, the application on your machine, you're pointing and clicking through our UI, and everything's really easy. Sometimes there's a case for doing something in an automated fashion or on a schedule, or you just, you don't want to have to do it manually, right? And so Postman's API is just a set of endpoints which allow you to carry out the vast majority of actions that you can do in-app, but via an API call instead. So at the most basic level, you can do things like update a collection through an API call, but you can get into much more complex things where you could sequence Postman API requests to move collections between workspaces or evaluate them for governance reasons. So there's really a great deal of things that can be done with it, but it's really about being able to carry out more automated tasks with Postman.
Yeah, so while you were explaining I just imported from new API Network Postman API, and here's, actually, if you haven't taken a look at the API in a while, they keep adding new functionality here. So yeah, you can grab a collection if you have CI/CD, grab that latest version. You can manipulate, as Matt said, like say you're working with API specifications, you can go ahead and update that. And actually, we just talked about this in case you missed it. Before we built that two-way sync, you might have had to use the Postman API to push those changes and sync them. You might have had to roll your own solution. So this is always clutch for custom solutions before Postman as a company builds out the stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. And so the follow-up to that question being, is it just a normal API key? Yes. So it's just a regular API key. In order to make calls to the API, you can't hit the API without one. And in order to find collections to work with rather than creating your own, you can hit that new button up in the top left of the app to get at templates and pull in existing collections, as Joyce just demonstrated.
Oh, it's Airsick Mammal. We have a shout out for you, Airsick Mammal, later. So I'll just show that because I had my Postman API key already, but all I'm Matt, I'll move your head down here.
Find user address.
So I'm here logged into our team account, and what I can do is I can go to team. Let me just pick a workspace where, actually, I don't know how API keys work, if it's all at the workspace level or if it's at the team level.
Let's get rid of the spawning shit.
The API keys are at the team level, but
level.
you have to be in a workspace to get to the integrations tab and make.
Okay, so I will see all my keys. So all I'm doing is I'm in the browser. I'm logged in to Postman, and under this tab integrations, this is where there's all the pre-built integrations. But if you want to roll your own, you go to Postman API. I think everything's masked now, so I won't show any secrets.
It is, yeah.
So here you can see, except for this old one that's been revoked due to inactivity. This is the. Oh my God! I thought I just revealed a secret. It's just a tooltip. Yeah. So I created an API key, and then this is what I'm going to use to run the CLI.
Exactly.
Okay. So back to it. We just said, yep, go ahead and call it the default Postman. We'll have a directory called Postman that will then hold all of our scaffolding for this tool. Enter file name for the collection.json file. So should I leave it the default? What is this JSON file?
Yeah, so a bunch of people who are already watching might be familiar with this. If you've ever exported a collection from Postman, what will happen is it will give you a JSON file that you can store on disk, and that's then something that you could, for example, add to your like local repo and then push up to Git. The issue with that file in this kind of setup is that those JSON files get pretty large. They can be 10,000, 20,000 lines long, and so diffing them and seeing what's going on within them is quite difficult.
I'm just going to show the exporting. So I'm in Postman. So here's an example collection, and you can go ahead and edit it. Whoop, not edit, export. You can go ahead and export and then doing this will save a .json file to your local file system.
Right. Yeah. And so those JSON files, as well as being something you can export, you can also import them, and really they're the kind of underlying.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the underlying foundation behind how a collection actually works. So they're very important. We can't just use this CLI to create a bunch of JavaScript files containing our Postman scripts and then somehow hope that that will work with the Postman ecosystem. The Postman ecosystem is designed to use the Postman collection format. So the CLI, again, is acting as that middleman. So as well as making all the files for us, it will also take our files and convert them back into the Postman collection format so that changes to our scripts, we can play around with them in Postman. And it basically means that, you know, we can also use things like Newman without any hassle because we're going back to that tried and tested way of working. So this is really just asking for whether you have a preference on the file name for that file, but there isn't a need to change it unless you have a specific desire to call that something.
Should I call it Echo because that's the one that I plan to use?
Yeah, for sure. That works.
Okay, so it's Postman _ collection. So I'm just going to say Echo Postman Postman collection.json. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then an environment. If I have an environment, I don't think I'll use an environment, but I'll just go ahead and take the default one. Actually, I'll call it Echo.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, this basically exists because people typically use
most
environments.
People. Yeah. Okay, let's just be consistent here and call it Echo Postman environment in case we want to stash our keys or stash some config or something. Whoa, it's done?
Yep.
That's it?
Yep. That's it.
Okay, that was a great live stream. Thank you for joining us today. All right, now what?
So now we probably want to think about where we're going to do the bulk of our work, right? So it's good to set up the CLI within our terminal, but like ultimately we're going to be diving into our IDE to edit the scripts. So before we start issuing more Postman commands, we probably are going to want to dive into the IDE and run them there.
Okay, so open up IDE.
Yeah.
Okay, so code dot. Of course, this opened up on a separate screen. Okay, so I see this IDE, whoops, fun directory that I created, and here's .postman.json. Oops, well.
You're obscuring a bit of that. It's okay.
Okay. Okay, I've already revealed it because Arlemy told me to expand my terminal. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the README. Okay. This is what you were saying earlier. We already got our API key. We already set everything up. And now there's initial scaffolding .postman.json, right?
Yes. So that's like basically when we ran that Postman setup command, it saves us from having to construct that JSON config file ourselves with all the unique IDs and things like that, which can be hard to get at and find.
Okay.
So it just takes that off our hands. But now we're basically ready to use all of the other commands that exist within the CLI. Now it's set up.
Okay. What should I do next?
So the first thing that you're going to want to do is run the Postman bootstrap command.
Okay, so I should have read your getting started. Okay. So from the root of the Git repo, run this.
Yeah.
You know, I love READMEs, but what I would love is just like some additional verbiage that says like what this does. But let's just try it. Okay, so from the root of the project.
Let's do this in our IDE now, where if we can.
Oh. Okay, hold on. Yeah.
We can stay within.
Damn it. Every time. Okay, so.
So yeah, if you fire up a terminal within.
Yeah, it's on a different window. How do I do it on this window?
So if you
I make a change. I was doing it on a different.
And then.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're still in our project directory. And now you want me to run Postman Bootstrap because all we have right now is .postman.json.
Yes. Yeah. So the Bootstrap. Yep. Go for it.
Files written. Okay. Here's that default Postman directory that we had during the CLI setup.
Yes.
And okay. So this is let's just see. This is back to Postman. This is the collection that I selected. So this is what it looks like. 37 requests, and there's some folders and some requests. Mm-hmm. Let's go look at, so now we have Postman folder, a couple different, okay, so auth digest. Let's find that one. Auth digest is a folder that has one request. So this is what the request looks like. And there's tests. So in the CLI version, in our IDE, it's every request is probably has request, and response, and tests.
Yes, and there will also be a pre-request script there too, if it exists
if it exists.
Collection. Yeah.
So request methods folder had, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 requests. Mm-hmm. And here's a request, response, and tests. So now I can either, I can programmatically script something, or I could do like I think find and replace or something like that, right? Something that I like to do in my IDE that maybe I don't know how to do in Postman.
Yeah. So this is, if you use VS Code a lot, if this is where you write all the code for everything else, like if this is where you write your APIs, if this is where you write your shell scripts, this is what you know, right? You're used to navigating files and folders on the Explorer on the left. You're used to having specific linting rules or a specific editor setup, the colors, the theme that you use in VS Code. It's that coding environment where people feel like when they open up a file, they look at it and they feel like they can get to grips with it straight away because they're not trying to they're not trying to adjust to the context switch. The only thing that's changing is the context of the file.
Okay. So stay in the same context. It looks like you can use PM or Postman for extra speed because those extra letters are going to slow you down.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm looking at your usage. We've already done Postman Bootstrap to set up the initial scaffolding.
Mm-hmm.
What should I do next?
Yeah. So now we have Bootstrap. We can look at actually making a change to the scripts that we have. And then we can see how the CLI can help us go back in the opposite direction. So we've already done kind of step one of the process where we've taken the collection and we've moved it to a file and folder structure that we can work within our IDE, and that now we have files we could independently manage through Git for diffs and things like that. So really now we're at the edit stage, and then after that we'll be looking at how do we go back to Postman.
Okay, so people in the chat, I'm curious. I don't know how many people in the chat write tests or write pre-requests. We talk about it like in almost every live stream, who writes pre-request scripts and tests, but I want ideas from the Twitch chat. What do you want us to do, like specific things? And then in the meantime, so think about that. Let us know what you want to see today. So you're saying, Matt, just to, I'm slightly ADHD. So just to make sure I understand what you said, we took what we had in the Postman app, did Bootstrap to push it or to propagate that collection in our IDE in this folder. And now if we make changes, the next thing to try out is to make changes in our IDE and then push it back to Postman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when I make changes here, how do I push these changes back to the IDE?
Right. So there's basically just a rerunning of the Bootstrap command that you can do if you change the collection and you're adding new things. So if you were to add a new request, you could run Bootstrap again and it will scaffold and add those extra things. But this isn't a completely you can have your cake and eat it type situation, because there's still certain difficulties involved with going from one format to the other, and we'll see some of that in a bit when we look at some of the additional functionality that the CLI has. So really, if you're interested in using something like the CLI, you're basically saying that that's the workflow I'm going to pick, and it's most likely that you're not going to edit your scripts in Postman from that point.
Okay, so pick a horse and ride out the rest of the race. Let's try out the rest of the race in our IDE. So I was going to say screw Postman. Don't screw Postman because we're still using Postman's underlying technology, but let's go back to our IDE. Let's go ahead. So people in the chat, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to drive this horse and we're going to just do what I want to do. Let me know what you would like to see in the test.js. Like what kind of JavaScript do you want to see? Okay, so let's go ahead. Should I just like write a test maybe? Or should I write like vanilla JavaScript?
Yeah, we could do anything. So we could do anything from changing a test to, deliberately make it fail. We could change a status code 200 check to a 201 and just see the edit.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm going to go under request methods. I'm going to say like a get request. Let's see what the test looks like here. Okay, so there's two very simple chai.js assertions. So the first test is response is okay with 200. And then this one is assertion PM response to have specific properties. Okay, so should I just copy and paste this one, or should I update this one, or what's the cleanest way to see this?
Yeah, I mean, we can very simply just change this one. So we could change the status code from 200 to something else. Let's just say 404. That's a visible enough change for us to notice a difference, and uh, we know that should probably cause the test to fail as well. So if we were to run this collection in Postman right now, we would see that this script is executing and two tests pass, right? So this change would make a difference to that. Something's going to be tricky. Something's going to fail, fall over at that point.
Okay, so we haven't talked a lot about tests, but this is the syntax of the test. This is the name of the test. Response is okay. And this is the assertion. Previously, it had 200. So if it returns 200, this would be a truthy, and then this would be a passed test. But now that it's 404, if we actually get a 200, this would be falsy, and this should be a failed test, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to save it. Now what?
Right. So now we need to basically do the reverse of what that bootstrap command did. So that built
Okay.
our scaffolding from
Bootstrap built our scaffolding.
Yeah. And so we just want to do the reverse of that. We want to take the files that we have and convert it back to Postman land. So
Okay.
we need one of those collection JSONs, basically.
Okay.
And so the command that does that within the CLI is Postman sync. That's what will take the files back to the JSON format.
Okay, converts the files created with Postman Bootstrap back to the Postman collection format. After we push our changes to version control, we can run Postman clone or Postman update. So just Postman sync from,
Yeah.
Okay, so we just save this, or I could use PM to save time. What happened? What happened?
Oh.
Lodash. Cannot find module Lodash. So let's look at the test. Are we using Lodash?
So we're not using it in this test script here, but because when you run sync, it's going to evaluate all of the files that we bootstrapped.
Okay.
It's likely that one of the other files is using Bootstrap.
Okay.
And basically, due to some of the compilation that the CLI does, it means that it was expecting to find Lodash installed locally as a node module, and it didn't.
Okay.
So there are two steps to resolving this. One is we could just install Lodash locally, npm install Lodash, and it'd go away. Or we could decide if we still want to use that library and potentially remove it from that script.
Interesting. So the Postman sandbox, we've talked about this a few times, has these inbuilt libraries. Lodash is one of them. That's why somewhere in this collection, somebody's using Lodash to write a test because it's already a dependency that's included in this scripting area. But here, we just took the code, but not the dependencies. So let's go ahead. I want to npm install Lodash.
Yeah.
I assume it's just called Lodash.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm installing it locally here, and now you see node modules, and now you see a ton of stuff, including Lodash. So now I can run that same command again, Postman sync. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing that there's only one library in there. Oh, Postman collection written to this name that I designated earlier during setup. So that's right here. There it is. So this is the not friendly. This is the JSON file that I'm used to seeing a Postman collection represented as.
Exactly. Yeah. So the difference now is that this now includes the changes that you made to that file. And when you ran sync, it's basically taking all the changes that have been made to the files and it's putting it back into this format that Postman understands.
Okay. So let's just pause for comments. API Evangelist says basics is it JSON status codes did. Where did Matt go? Oh, He keeps disappearing.
He lost my face.
Skype. Okay. So that's probably with the tests. Okay. So Prepbird said, oh gosh, that's a lot of text. Plus, I don't know what this emote means. Does anyone know what this emote means? Arlemy? Okay. Lodash is not already included in the dependencies. Yeah, so would it be possible to eventually get a list of all local dependencies needed at the CLI? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so this is I mean, the Postman Bootstrap takes the collection, the Postman collection, and builds out this scaffolding, right? But it doesn't take all the dependencies that are built, the inbuilt libraries, we call them, the sandbox libraries. The stuff that normally you'd be able to use, you can use Lodash, you can use like AJV, like Cheerio, stuff like that in here. It's behind the scenes, but it's not explicit yet. So that's why we had to npm install Lodash here locally, right?
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So Postman just bundles some libraries for you. So they're there ready for you to use, and there's no concept of installing them. Whereas when we're working with anything node related within our IDE like this, that is not the default. You have to be very explicit about installing the packages you want. And so it's definitely something for kind of me to think about in this project as to what makes most sense there. But for right now, any packages that you install, you would need to, or any packages that you use, you would need to actually install locally too.
Okay, so let's just jump back in. What we did was we took Postman Echo collection that we had here, used Matt's CLI to run Postman Bootstrap to collect this scaffolding under this directory. And now we made a change, and it has, like, each request has these JSON files broken out, or JSON or JavaScript files broken out. So this is a test. We just updated this. And then we ran Postman, Postman sync to then push our changes from the IDE that we're making here locally to this collection JSON file. Now what?
Yeah, so now we're at the point where we're kind of back in the Postman world, nearly. So we have this updated collection JSON, and that's something that I was like, oh, great, okay, well, I could go to the Postman app and import that, right, and see the changes.
That's what I was thinking you would make me do.
Right. This is great. Now I can use the changes that I made locally in my CI process. I can run Newman with this collection JSON, right? But for the first instance, for executing this collection in Postman again, we don't really want to have to, go to Postman, hit import, find the file we want to import, because that's kind of like a part of the process we're trying to eliminate with the CLI. So there's two commands that you can use to get this collection back into the app itself. And so there's a Postman update command. Okay. And this will update the collection that you originally bootstrapped from. And you might think, great, this is the command that I want to run straight away. But what you've got to consider is that the collection we're working on is something that sits within a team workspace in Postman. So Arlemy right now, as well as helping us out with the stream, could actually be, working with this collection. And so if we go and run Postman update here and make our change, we update that test to be a 404 instead of a 200. He's suddenly going to have a new, an updated version of the collection and have no idea where it came from. We'd be changing the version that everyone uses. And so there's another command within the CLI called Postman clone.
Just to make sure I understand, Postman update, if I had taken this team, I'm in a team workspace right now here, Twitch. So if I had taken this and maybe like forked it, maybe created a fork that said like Joyce fork, no one touch, then I could run Postman update. But since I took it from the origin, you're saying there's another command I should look at?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a Postman clone command, which will basically clone the collection as you have it locally, and it will place it in the personal workspace that you have called My
My
Workspace. And
workspace.
so this means that you can try it out in your own isolated area without affecting anyone
My
else.
private workspace. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I've forgotten I've forgotten the command already. Postman
Postman
clone.
clone. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna do Postman clone. And you said I should look for the change in my workspace, right?
that's right. Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna see my junk drawer. Ah. Okay, so I'm switching over from the team workspace to my workspace, and it was called uh
Postman Echo, right?
yep. Is this it? Okay, Postman Echo. So the way we can verify that is to find the one request. Do you remember which one I wrote it under? Let me
I think
see.
it was the get request, right?
The get request test. Okay, so I navigate request methods, get request, tests. What?
Mhm.
What's all this junk? Oh, is
Right.
that?
So this is uh this is kind of continuing from uh, the brief conversation we had earlier, where really, if you use the CLI, you wouldn't also continue to edit scripts in Postman. It's really one approach or the other.
Yeah, is this Lodash?
And so in this case, it's not Lodash in this file because in this test script, we weren't requiring it. But if we had required Lodash in this test script, this is where it would be bundled in.
Oh my
And
gosh, the
so,
bundled um dependency. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so, as we'll see as we move further through this, whilst we could have left this capability out of the CLI and just left you with the standard packages that are included within the Postman sandbox, by including this bundling, it means that we can actually include any package from npm. Also, we could create our own local files and require them in if we have like repeat code that
Oh
we want to
yeah, we're gonna
execute
come
again
back
and
to
again.
that one. I like that. Okay, so but here's the thing the change that we made. We literally changed
Right.
200 to 404. So should I hit send?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm sending, and we have a failed assertion, which is true. Perfect. So it's a
Yeah.
very simple 3 characters change, but that demonstrates how you can sync. I think that's the command, sync and clone, to push changes back into Postman so that we can test it out. Although you're saying don't go back and forth. It's really not intended to be like that. But that shows us the general workflow, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you briefly wanted to tweak something, if you saw a silly mistake, you could still change it and run it. There's nothing stopping you doing that, but it's not going to be the best method for actually pushing significant changes through.
Yeah. So Freppert had a question. Is it possible to use PM instead of Postman in CLI? Yeah. So just to be very, very clear, this is Matt's side project. It's not an official tool for Postman, but the way he's built his CLI, yes, you can use PM instead of Postman from the command line, and that is different from the PM, this PM syntax that we're inside Postman the app and we're in the sandbox, and you mostly use PM, but occasionally you might use Postman syntax. But that's a different PM and Postman. But yes, the answer is yes, but they're 2 different apples and oranges that we're talking about here. Okay, so now you had said something, and then I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I do that a lot. I'm sorry. You had said that not only can we just your face keeps going away. Not only can we update the JavaScript tests here, but we
Mhm.
could create a local file. We can pull in Lodash like we did earlier with npm install, which then shows us our dependencies. But we can also just create like what? Why would I have a separate local JavaScript file?
Yeah, so once you get to writing any kind of significant amount of pull request or test script, you tend to find that you start to repeat yourself a little bit. So there might be tests that you repeat, but there could also be some kind of fundamental vanilla JavaScript logic that you need in order to test your API or make the workflow happen. And Postman has some built-in capability for helping to dry up your code. So, you can add common code at a folder and a collection level.
Yeah, if I'm here in a collection level or folder level, you can click edit and you can reuse variables, you can reuse scripts, or you can essentially establish an environment variable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you do that, if you add it at the collection level, that script runs for every request inside the collection, and the same for folder, but obviously at a narrower scope. The difference of why we might want to use a local file to abstract some code is that we decide when it executes. By default, it won't execute across every request or across every folder. So, let's say we have a piece of code that we repeat across a very random smattering of the requests across our collection, and I can't easily boil it down to a folder level script or a collection level script. We might want to have something that we can just reference a lot, but not actually execute all the time.
Yeah. So Postman Paul is one of my favorite community people. He's a tester out in is Liverpool, UK?
Yes.
Or Manchester. I get those mixed up. I'm so sorry.
They're right next to each other, so I'll say that's easily done given you're 5,000 miles away.
So Postman Paul, he doesn't work at Postman, but he's a tester. He has always been asking for, hey, I'm a tester and I have like a list of tests and I want to not run all of them like you're saying, but be able to point to one, be able to reference one. So you're saying if I just create like a module.exports or something local JSON file here, I can then write my code to require that function or that test or like whatever?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, we could create a JavaScript file in the root of this Postman directory, and we could start including some things in there that we would like to be able to reference from any file when we choose to do so.
Let's do it. Okay, so what should I call my utility like thing? What should I call this local file?
You could call it something like utils.js or common.js.
Utils. Common?
Yep.
Common like the rapper?
Yep, that works.
Common.js. Okay, where is that? Common.js. Okay, so now I'm in this new file that I'm going to use to hold my common functions or common tests or like code.
Yeah, exactly. So, but because this is something that we're going to require in to other scripts, we'll obviously need this set up to export something.
So should I module.exports? What's the syntax here?
Yeah, so module.exports equals, and then we can do a curly brace, and that will allow us to export an object, and we could include key value pairs, we can include functions, things that we want to be able to use elsewhere.
Okay, so if I wanted to do API keys would be terrible to do here, but if I wanted to do like config like URL or something, could I do that? Could I poke? Well, I mean, like this is just JavaScript basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you could potentially define some like static values here, some constants that you want to be able to reference throughout the collection if you wanted to do it that way. There's really
this is not the right syntax. Hold on.
Is
that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. You got it.
How do I do a function?
So if you write the name of the function first.
What do we want to do? Chat, I want ideas for, or Matt, you could do ideas too.
You could just you could do something really basic, like just logging out that config URL for now.
How about
Uh,
logger?
sure.
Logger?
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. You said say the name. What's the syntax?
So you'll need a colon again.
Colon?
Yeah.
Like
And
anonymous.
then yes. Yeah.
Like that takes something?
So if we just want it to always log the same message, then we don't need anything there. But if you would like to make it configurable so that the message, yeah.
And then just write it in there like that?
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
so let's add some nice spaciousness. So you can put in your constants. This is just vanilla JavaScript. This is nothing Postman specific. And we have a function defined called logger that takes in something and will log that thing. Okay, so chat, if you have ideas for more creativity, please let us know. In the meantime, we're going to log using our new function called logger. Okay, now what?
Cool. So now we could go back to that test JS file that we had open, and we could make use of that common file that we've put together.
Okay, so we have a static element and a function. And if we're back here in the tests, Michael Bettendorf, more creativity. Okay, so do we need to require, we need to require because we're on a separate thing, right? Separate file?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I just say like, let logger?
Yeah, nope, exactly.
Require, are we at root? No. Where are we? We're down here in this hole.
You're pretty deep, yeah. So you're going to need to do a few ... // until you see
Oh,
the
common?
VS Code. Yep, there you go.
Okay, so we're requiring just a relative path to our common.js file. And now we can use logger. Is this the right syntax? It looks weird.
So
oh, I like that.
the syntax is right, but right now you've called that variable logger, and actually it's going to contain everything inside that common file. So you might want to call that common.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then access it with common dot logger.
Exactly. Yeah. And you should get like your VS Code helping you with some autocomplete there as well, because it will be able to snoop into your
snoop. Okay, so let's go and say, what do we want to log? Whoop. We need thing to log in here, right? Should I just say hello?
Yep, that works.
Hello, Freppard _ Freppard has compliments for you, Matt. And just, he said this feature is very useful. There's no way to do the same stuff natively in Postman app. Is that true?
So the Postman app itself has a fully featured version control system. So if you were looking at the CLI in order to, make use of Git to version control your files, then yes, we have the same thing in the app. What we don't have in the app is like a button that would say, like, edit this in my IDE. So that's that's where there's like no comparison to the app itself. That's what makes this approach different.
Okay, so I'm logging out. This is my thing to log out. And now I have to push it back to Postman to test it out. So there were those two commands.
Yeah.
Do you think I can remember? Is it Postman sync and Postman clone?
That's right.
I only remembered because I can see it right here. Okay, so I'm going to go Postman sync and Postman clone. So I run that and it'll be in my workspace, my personal workspace, so that I don't stomp on anything, right? Oh, yeah, my thing disappeared. My thing disappeared. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I had Postman open and the old echo, so there's only one echo. I thought there would be two.
Yeah. So because a lot of writing code is iterating and seeing if your thing works yet, if every time you ran Postman clone, it gave you a new copy of this collection, it would start to be a little overwhelming. So when
Yeah.
you run clone for the first time, it just remembers that it's done that before. So that the next time it runs, it cleans up after itself and just gives you the latest version of the thing that you're cloning.
Okay, so you didn't want to junk it up, so it just usurps this Postman echo, and you can see that we had this open all earlier. This collection has now been deleted. This is a new Postman echo, and if we go under get requests again, under that tests that we saw the JS, here you see that, I don't know, whatever that is earlier. And okay, so here it is, because at the top of test.js, let's just look at what we wrote earlier. We required it, and then we invoke the function. So this require at the dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash common is just pulling that in. And in fact, the entire JS file is right here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here's common.logger. So theoretically, this should work because we've defined it, and now we're going to access it here. So will this console log? It'll log it to the console, right? So let's hit send.
Oh, yeah, all being well.
And we see that because we never changed that back. And now we
Right.
can open up the console. Hello, Freppard. Yay, nice. That's pretty neat. Well, there's some stuff going on. Okay, so debased says, debased, could the config URL be an environment variable? So I wonder what debased is asking. So here we set a static variable, but I wonder if he's saying like, I wonder if you mean like, can we access a system environment variable or Postman environment variable or... Hi, Matawick. Hello, all these regulars coming in. Nice. Debase, maybe you can provide more information about Postman and variable.
Right. So at this within this file, it's likely that you can't interact with a Postman environment variable. I could be wrong on that. I should know that, having made this tool myself.
Logic.
But certainly you can still interact with environment variables within the test scripts exactly like you would normally. You could still use a common file like this to effectively define what you might call environment variables. And obviously you can still access like this config URL we could easily access within our test.js by doing like common.config_URL. And then you could still set it in a Postman environment variable through some extra syntax after that. So there's nothing stopping you interacting with them using them as normal. But when you're in one of these outside files, I'm not entirely confident whether you can use any Postman specific context. But that's a great question and something for me to dig into.
Along those lines, Debase, you're asking about using the Postman environment variable in general, but that's a great question. I created echo_Postman collection, but I'm not using an environment. Most people that are doing serious stuff with Postman use an environment. What happens when I want to work with an environment and a collection here in this scaffolding?
Yeah, so there's a command within the CLI that can fetch your environment for you. So it's called Postman env, ENV.
This one right here?
And yeah, that will basically allow you to retrieve the environment JSON and it'll place it alongside that collection JSON. And so should you choose to change that collection JSON, should you choose to change that environment JSON, then when you go and run any of the other Postman commands, that should get pushed through too.
Okay, because it's in the same project directory. So let's try that. So I'm going to do, was it Postman env?
Yes.
I'm going to reveal some secrets. This is terrible. The env is where I keep my
We
secrets.
could, yeah, I mean, we can always, I mean, if you know an environment there that won't contain any secrets, you can pick that. Else
How
we could
about
go and
this?
make an environment.
You're so smart. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that team workspace because that's what I have the CLI tool pointing to. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new environment called CLI test.
Yeah.
You don't pee in your pants. Everyone pees in their pants. Sorry. Yeah, environments. A lot of people use environments. They're kind of like if you're working with a team or just doing anything a little bit more sophisticated, that's, let's see. Okay, so do I need to run this again because I created it?
Yeah, you will.
Exit out of there.
That list won't update dynamically. So
Okay.
yeah.
So I called it CLI test. So I'm running Postman env to fetch the environment.json and put it here in this root directory, correct? This project directory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so. Oh, and I already said what name it should be earlier during the initial setup. So I'm looking for echo.postman.environment, and I have the ID, but I have like the empty values because I just created an empty environment. Okay, cool. So if I created my key value pairs here, then theoretically I could do Postman sync Postman clone to push it back to Postman.
Yeah. So right now the clone command will take a copy of the environment and it will push it into your workspace so that you can use the environment that you have locally along with the collection. Right now, we haven't covered this yet, but the Postman update command won't update the environment, typically just because environment changes are often quite rare, and we wouldn't want someone to overwrite values in an environment without really deliberately meaning to. So it feels best to keep it as a manual step at the moment.
That's super neat. Okay, what else do we want to do today? I have a question. Are you looking, Matt, are you looking for contributors on this project or do you know if Postman engineering is going to be doing anything with this tool?
Yeah, so really, I'm just looking to see whether people get excited about this and whether it solves a problem for them. And anyone who kind of does jump on and wants to use it, of course, I welcome contributions to this. If you have ideas but you aren't ready to contribute, I'm also really eager to hear feedback through people submitting issues, things like that. So right now, this is really like an early stage project to see what happens with it.
I want to do a CLI now. How hard was it to do? I've never made one before.
It's pretty easy actually. I mean, with this being open source, obviously you can go in and you can see the code that makes this CLI up. And actually, a lot of the harder things are taken care of by someone else's package or the Postman API itself. Uh, and I'm just gluing things together. So I think the initial version of this CLI was actually only 30 lines long. And it wasn't particularly usable. So obviously it's expanded out from there. But definitely to get started, you really don't need much.
Yeah, really, it's kind of interesting because I knew we had the Postman API and I know how to do things with the API, but I never thought to like build something on top of that. So, I mean, super cheesy and propagandic, but like you can really build anything you want with a good API, right?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of it's just really kind of thinking through the problem. For a long time, I thought this kind of tool wasn't something that could be made. And then one day I just looked at the Postman API and realized that I just hadn't fully considered the power of what was possible. And that's when I started writing code.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Madovic is going to go back and watch from the start so you can hook stuff up to VS Code. And by hooking stuff up, it was it was a single Madovic, if you're still there, it was literally just running this globally, installing this globally, and then Postman setup is the 2 steps to get this hooked up and then in order to see, okay, so it's 3 steps. Postman to Bootstrap to see something in VS Code, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
exactly.
easy peasy. No, okay. And so AirSig Mammal, yeah, you're still with us. Started, watched, and cloned. So you are looking for feedback on this, right, Matt? This is a tool that came about because you're talking to people using Postman and maybe they have certain flows and they're asking, hey, I love my IDE and I want to do some heavier lifting or something like that. And so it's just it's at a baby stage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is solving a few problems right now, right? It stops people having to go through that import export flow if they want to put their collection in Git, and it breaks it down into files. We have the ability to require and use that common code. And so at this point, it's really a case of people using it and saying, hey, this part doesn't work so well, or I'm running into some friction here.
Okay, so API Evangelist says my 3 favorite acronyms: API, CLI, IDE. So API Evangelist is going to have to change their name to IDE Evangelist, CLI Evangelist. Okay, gun to the head, Matt. If you had to choose, what is your favorite, API, CLI, or IDE? If you could only have one.
I have to say API.
You have to because you work at Postman?
Well, also because I've just made this CLI, but it wouldn't have been possible without an API. That was really that's the power behind it. And then IDEs are great, but APIs are something that we produce and consume. There's creativity and technical details behind them, and the IDE is just the tooling that we use to make them. So APIs would be top of the list for me. So I would say he doesn't have to change his.
Propagandic is going to be the name of Michael Bettendorf's new band. Bootstrap clone. Yeah, Postman. Yeah, exactly. Postman clone, Postman sync. Postman clone, Postman sync. Although Freppard, remember, Matt is recommending not to use both. It's a way to shift between both, but like side by side, it's not really intended for that. At least currently, it's not intended. But maybe, Matt, if you get feedback that says I really want to be able to work in both, like very flexibly, then maybe you can do some more work.
Maybe.
Tensoriality.
Yeah.
Random question. Have you guys already played with Open AI? Do you know what this is?
Open AI.
Is AI artificial intelligence? Because if so, Arlemy, are you still there? Do you know what this is? Arlemy's our resident AI. It's a data set. So it's a data set of text. I have Arlemy in my ear right now. You can type in the chat too, Arlemy. Tensoriality.
Like a future.
Yeah, that's perfect. So if anybody else has suggestions for data sets or APIs or even just technology that's peripheral to what you've seen on this, please suggest that. Arlemy's writing Open AI GPT-3 API down right now. Damn, that's a lot of. Okay. All right. So, just from the chat, if you have any last minute things that you want to explore with the CLI, please plop in your suggestions. Otherwise, we will move on to, and let me go ahead and drop the link to the CLI one more time. I know it's in the chat. I don't know, like Twitch, when you join late, you don't see like what's happening in the past, I don't think. But anyways, I just dropped a link to Matt's repo. And it's, I mean, the README, there's no pictures or no GIFs, but it's pretty thorough. Every time I had a question, you would answer and I'd be like, yep, there it is in the README. So the importance of good READMEs. Okay. Yeah, you don't see the past, only the present. So philosophical. So check out Matt's repo and provide feedback. Matt, how can people stay in touch with you? Is your Twitter on the screen? Is that how you want people to talk to you?
It is on the screen, yeah. So feel free to reach out to me through that. I'd love to hear from you. Also, feel free to just open an issue on this repo if it's specifically to do with the CLI. But yeah, look forward to hearing from you if anyone finds time to try it out and take it for a spin.
Keeping in mind, if you open an issue, this is your side project. This is like what you did in your free time. You're not paid to do this. So Freppert has last question. Is it possible to specify parameter to commands?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, when Bootstrap runs, it will scaffold every request that it hasn't before. So if you're running it for the first time, you're going to get everything scaffolded over. If you go back into Postman at a later date, you add a folder, you add a request, you go and run Bootstrap again, it will sync just those new things over. But it is kind of self-determining about what it does. So there's not a specific way you can say just bootstrap this stuff. And really it's intended to create that scaffolding. It's not intended to keep things up to date from changes in Postman, because if you decide to use the CLI at that point forward, you're really, you're riding that horse, as Joyce was saying, and you're going to make all your changes through your IDE and syncing them through the CLI at that point, and you're no longer going to be making them through Postman.
All right. If there's any last questions, go ahead and add them now. Any last suggestions, add them now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to community shout-outs. Matt, I don't know if you saw this one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, hopefully you still see my screen. I'm going to go to explore.postman.com, and under templates, let's go ahead and search for Jira. So Postman uses Atlassian product Jira for our project management. It's a very popular tool, and it currently has 0 imports, but Airsick Mammal, if you're still there, has created these collections. And API Evangelist, if you're still there, API Evangelist, we've talked about him before. He's a celebrity in this space. He's going to start hacking on this, but man, we use Jira pretty heavily, but Jira is a user interface, right? So if you want to do things programmatically, like say you have a new boss and they want you to use a new project management tool and you have to migrate stuff over, you have to like kind of fiddle around with it. Airsick Mammal has created 2 collections, Jira Cloud Epic, Jira Server Epic. Here, let me just drop these right here in the Airsick Mammal. How do people come up with their Twitch names? Matt Ball UK.
Original.
Yeah, so check these out. And if you come up with something like Airsick Mammal that, maybe you're just working with a public partner, or maybe Airsick Mammal works at Jira, right? So you can go ahead and document. So if I go ahead and click through to documentation, this is the Jira server template. If you create stuff and you want to share it, I've done this before for like Nanoleaf, IoT, like the lights that light up. I'm like, why don't they have a collection? I just create a collection and publish it, and then now people can consume it. They can consume it from your GitHub repo, your GitHub repo, or you can just come in here and search for it. So community shout out this week is for Airsick Mammal, who is contributing and giving back to the community. So check that out. Do you have any shout outs for, I don't know, it's like community shout outs, anything that you've seen that's cool? Totally cool if you haven't. No.
Not at the moment, no.
Well, I guess you've been moving.
I've just been busy with that move, so
yeah.
I'm not fully up to speed with what's going on. But for sure these templates can prove really useful. And it's funny you mentioned the nanoleaf one, because that saved me a heck of a lot of time when I wanted to hack on the nanoleaf lights in the office. Like, all the descriptions within the collection,
Yeah.
everything like that just landed in Postman and I was ready to go.
So we went in, so I showed you the Jira templates from the web, but here, if you're in Postman, here, the API network, here's the public ones. This is where we got the Postman API. But here, if you're like Nanoleaf, let's just check out Nanoleaf. You can go ahead and search for it. Or like Arlemy and I have been hacking on the Hue lights, the Philips Hue lights. And if they have public documentation, maybe it'll be under API network. If somebody has built something cool with it, actually, I think we published from the last Twitch stream. Yeah. So this is from our live stream, and we just published because people were asking for the underlying code that we were working on. Okay. So the last thing is, I think this is our last giveaway of the month. Is it still June? Otherwise, we're not doing a giveaway.
It's still June.
It's still June. Okay, so I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but Arlemy has been very honest to date. And so we can go ahead and, in the background, hopefully Arlemy's not in the bathroom or, yeah, matter of fact, this is your chance. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull something up. Okay, so if you haven't already logged into Twitch, make sure you're logged into Twitch if you want to participate in this raffle. The odds are good. I feel like a lot of people lurk, but they don't log in. And so the odds are good. What are we going to give away today? Matt, what do you want to give away?
Are we talking the full range of Postman swag here?
It's up to you. You're the guest.
I mean, I feel like socks are the big hit, but everyone loves a good pair of Postman socks. But we do have a very broad range of things. So
raffle? Ghetto Child's like, raffle? Did I hear raffle? Yes, everyone that wants to participate. Yes, Arlemy is here behind the scenes. Make sure you log in. And I heard socks from Matt. We do have some cute, stinking cute socks. Okay, so okay, we're going to be giving away socks. And I'm not sure what's going on, if I'm going to be doing it.
I think Arlemy is doing it.
Arlemy is going to be doing it, but he's very honest. He's been very honest this entire time. I'll narrate exactly how many people are participating. So make sure you're logged in. And then when it comes time, you're going to type in bang raffle, ! raffle in the chat. But just wait for it to start. Please don't start yet. Yes, everyone likes warm feet, and they're stinking cute too. Matt, what's your favorite pair of socks? I like the space dog socks.
Yeah,
Cooper?
They're pretty hard to beat. But I think we even have some like new ones coming along, right? And I don't have them, so I'm not up to date on Postman socks.
Well, it's June, it's Pride Month, but I think year-round we have nice Pride gear. You have like the Postman with the Pride flag. You have the Newman space helmet, the vintage space person.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Arlemy, what's happening? Okay. Arlemy is going to be sharing a screen, and we'll be able to see the honesty that is Arlemy. French people are pretty honest. Okay, so this is Arlemy's screen. I don't think they have your audio, so well, I can't see what's going on. So he's going to start the giveaway real soon for socks. 1. For 1 minute, you will have 60 seconds. Russell W. Carey, these are some pretty sweet socks. So stretch out the fingers, everyone. Stretch out the fingers. Go ahead. The suspense is killing me.
It is.
Okay, get ready, guys. Stretch out the fingers. You'll see it in the chat. Keep your eyes glued to the chat. Okay, so whoever wants to participate, go ahead and type in bang raffle, bang raffle, bang raffle, bang raffle. Okay, so Arlemi's showing us his screen. You see the time remaining. You see the people that have entered. These are really good odds. Enter price for socks. And hey, if you don't win, we always sell this stuff on our swag store. Matt, do you watch Twitch quite a bit? Do you know what this yeah, see? There's like Asian face and then chin beard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're pretty popular. I think they call them like emotes on Twitch. So you see those a lot if you go into popular streamers.
I see them all the time. I still don't know what they mean. Okay, it's over. Arlemi's gonna pick a winner. Oh, it's over now. Yes. Ooh, Kevin XJ40 just made it. Yes, we are ready. Should I do drum roll? Okay, drum roll. Ocean has won socks. So I believe we are asking Ocean, if you're still there. What if Ocean left? Okay, Ocean, if you wouldn't mind DMing us at on Twitter, get Postman or DM or just tweet us something. Just say you won the Twitch giveaway for socks, and we'll send something out to wherever you are in the world. Congratulations, Ocean. Wait, has Ocean won already? I feel like he has. That's all right. The odds are good. Okay, so next week, I'm hoping we'll have something very, very special. It's a project that I'm really, really excited about, but the company has declared a holiday, and so it might be me trying to do something infrastructure related. So 50-50 next week. We'll see you here. Wait, do we have office hours? Let me check really quickly. Yes. So we have an office hours coming up as well, July 7th. So if you're just, I mean, like we're just kind of like futzing around here, right, Matt? We're just kind of like playing around with this tool, right, exploring some cool use cases. But if you're like wanting some more hardcore Postman like demos, or you have questions, or you're kind of stuck on something that you're working on, then you can come to Postman office hours. That's going to be on a Tuesday, totally different day. So on July 7th. And I think that's all I have. Do you have anything else, Matt?
I don't think so. Thanks very much for having me on the stream.
Thank you very much for being our special guest, and we'll see you all next week, hopefully. Bye.
Yeah.